Now, Thomas Remington is a visiting professor of government at Harvard University. He joins me now live from Cambridge, Massachusetts. Thanks very much, Professor, for joining us here on TRT World. President Putin is in trouble, isn't he? That's why he has adopted what Stoltenberg calls an irresponsible and dangerous nuclear rhetoric, because Putin knows if he loses his war of aggression against Ukraine, it will most likely cost him his power, wouldn't it?
I think that's right. And what we're seeing now is a breakdown in the unity of command and political will in Russia. There's a great deal of infighting now, and it's even reaching Russian television, as well as some of the social media. They're the hardliners attacking poor performance on the part of the Russian military and who want a harder approach. But there are more open voices saying that the war shouldn't be fought and that Russia should now seek some kind of an extrication strategy. Putin is micromanaging it, but he's not doing so very effectively.
So is this latest escalation a last-ditch effort by President Putin to save Russian forces from defeat?
It's hard to call it last ditch. It is an effort to use these punitive strikes from the air as a way of demoralizing Ukraine. But so far, of course, as is the case in other wars, these attacks, aerial attacks on civilian infrastructure targets, only, I think, harden the will of the Ukrainian side, civil society, and the government. They don't have any military or strategic value. And so I don't think as a military tactic, these almost random bombardments of Ukraine's major cities are advancing Russia's military goals.
And Professor, I also want to focus on the domestic issues. For how much longer do you think President Putin can afford to continue this war? Because certainly there is growing discontent among the locals of Russia now.
Yeah, I think that's right. And there's a slow deterioration in the living standards for the population. Consumption is down. And a lot of the big industry interests and small industry are suffering badly from the lack of spare parts and components. And the financial system of the government is under severe strain. There's no immediate crisis, but the conditions are ripe, I think, for some kind of an outburst from society, and it could spread. So I don't see an immediate threat to Putin's hold on power, but I think, as we know from Russia, events can spill out of hand very quickly. And at that point, I think the elite would abandon Putin and look for other people to rally around. Some could be great hardliners, and others could be people who say we need an accommodation with the West.
Okay, and Professor, before I let you go, I also want to talk about NATO's strategy in Ukraine. Do you think there is anything else that NATO can do at this point besides providing advanced weaponry to Ukraine in order to contain Russian aggression?
I think air defenses now are the single most important thing NATO can do. We've already seen Germany make a major and significant commitment of a brand new air defense system to Ukraine. The United States will follow suit very shortly. The one, I think, consequence of Russia's attacks on civilian infrastructure targets around the country is to harden the will on the part of NATO countries to speed up the delivery of far more advanced systems, particularly air defense systems, than we had seen in the past. So Russia's efforts now are counterproductive.
Professor Thomas Remington, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for talking to us here on TRT World. Really appreciate your taking out the time.
Thank you. My pleasure. Bye-bye.